a steadfast champion for working class solidarity. His journey from the shop floor to union leadership embodies the spirit of collective action his union is forever having. His unwavering commitment to workers' rights has made a prominent voice in the labour movement, advocating for fair wages, safe working conditions and social justice. At the 2025 Gala, he joins us not only as a leader, but as a symbol of resilience and unity. His presence reaffirms our shared commitment to the values that have long defined this very gathering. Please join me in a warm welcome Eddie Dempsey, General Secretary of the RMT.
You look absolutely beautiful out there. You're gorgeous, all of you. I've never been as proud to see my union out marching with all of you today. You look absolutely wonderful. You make me feel proud to be alive, all of you. Give yourselves a round of applause. And what a fantastic movement we've got, and the spirit of solidarity that brings us all here together. And I just want to tell you what my lesson of solidarity was for me in my family. My father, he passed away this April this year. He was a deep sea sailor. He was a member of my trade union. And before that, where he grew up in Ireland, his people were miners in the Deer Park area in Coma, in Kilkenny. And they formed their own union, the Irish Mine and Quarry Workers Union, to fight for their people and to get a decent stake for their members. And they went out on strike for 11 months. They had no food, they had no income, but it was the miners of the South Wales Miners Federation who kept them going all the way through those 11 months, all those many years ago. And even after they shut the mines, where my father's people were from, many years later, in the Great Strike of 84 and 85, even though they were poor, they raised £10,000 in solidarity to give to the miners, to pay back the solidarity for the ghosts who went before them, because they never forgot the miners of South Wales and what they did to look after our people. Now, my father wasn't an emotional man. He barely spoke to me, if I'm honest with you, unless he had a few pints. But when he found out I was elected to represent the members of my region, the South Wales and South West of England, he had a tear in his eye. Because in him, the workers of South Wales were gods. He'd never forgotten their solidarity. And that's the proudest he's ever been of me. And that's how proud I am of you and this movement that we all belong to. Solidarity is what we're about. But we've got to be honest. Things out there are different now. The experience for workers in Britain, in most places outside of days like this glorious day, is one of chaos, insecurity at work, insecurity in housing, overburdened public services, dignity taken away, community falling apart. And it didn't happen by accident. It's happened because over the entire course of my life, there have been political decisions taken to break our movement, to take away our power, and to break our communities. We've had the market running our country and countries across the Western economies for 40 years. We've been left in Britain with our manufacturing offshored, our public services outsourced, the industrial foundations of our movement sold off, broken and destroyed. Working class communities in deindustrialised areas of Britain didn't just lose their jobs and their dignity, they lost their movement, which was built on the industrial base that was destroyed in the name of the market. So it's no surprise, brothers and sisters, it's no surprise out there people feel alienated, people feel divided, and we focus for 20 years on what divides us rather than what brings us together. That's the state we're in today. We're in that state because they say the market must rule. Well, the market is the chief cause of the chaos we face in our society today. And it wasn't always like this. We're the movement that pulled kids out of work and put them in the classroom. We're the movement that pulled millions out of poverty and gave them dignity. We're the movement that pulled people out of destitution in old age and gave them pensions and gave the infirm a health service. That's what we did in the past. When my father went out to work, it was a closed shop. Everyone was in the union. If you went to work as a normal person, you could afford to live. You could buy a house. You could have a holiday. You could afford some shopping, for God's sake. Now, in this day and age, under the rule of the market, half of the welfare budget that is spent in Britain is spent on in-work benefits. That is a direct subsidy for low wages so the corporations who've been screwing this country for years can get higher profits. And they go on the news and they go on the telly. The commentators, the pundits, the politicians, how will the markets react? What about the bond markets, they say? Well, who elected the bond market? Not me. Who runs this country? Either us or the markets. I know what I want. I want a country run for the people in it, not the markets. So the answer, brothers and sisters, to chaos as we know in the trade union movement is organisation. That's what we do. What we need is an organised society. What we need is a society where we've got a strategic role for the state, investing in building council housing so that we can give people homes, not new houses, so we can provide investment opportunities for speculators. We need a strategy to bring back manufacturing and industry in this country, to give us what we need for our national wealth and security and dignity for the working class. And I've got to tell you, it comes down to a very simple question. Who owns what? Because either you have an health service that looks after you when you're sick, or you've got an investment opportunity for private healthcare companies, but you can't have both. Either you can have a railway run for the people in the country, or you can have an industry at the hands of the speculators with profits leaving the country and going to tax havens. But you can't have both. Either we can have housing to look after people and provide for families, or we can have investment opportunities for speculators. But you can't have both. And the era of the free market and globalisation, brothers and sisters, is over. Ask them in America, they'll tell you. It's finished. We've survived for too long as a collection of banks with a country attached to it. What I want to see is a country run for the people with a few banks in it. And that's going to take us in our movement to get that back. As Mick McGahey used to say, we are a movement, not a monument. And whilst days like this make me proud to be alive and it's beautiful to see the banners and to think about our history, we must not become a museum. Because let's have it right. Over the past 40 years, we've seen living standards plummet, trade union membership halved. At one time, 80% of contracts of employment in this country were covered by a negotiated agreement with a working class movement. Now it's 25%. So it's no surprise people are going out to work and have to rely on benefits to meet the basic necessities of life. It is not an accident. And I'm saying to you that we have got to get our act together as an entire movement, all of us, to demand of the people in power that we must have sectoral collective bargaining back. They have got to put us back into the communities they tore us out of. They've got to put us back so we can rebuild our communities, because that is our job. Our movement was never just about wages. It was never just about terms and conditions. It was about community, like you here today, bringing people together, reminding people about what we've got in common, not what would divide us. So we must have sectoral collective bargaining back. And I've got to tell you something else. We must have the right to take solidarity strike action once again. We must have it. If we had sectoral collective bargaining and the right to take solidarity strike action, we would have never have had P&O. We would have never have had paramilitary security guards dragging our members off ships to be sacked. Because we would have brought out the whole sector in strike action in solidarity, and we'd have stopped them in their tracks. And that's going to require all of us to get behind that demand. And the other thing I've got to say, brothers and sisters, is that we've got to have a world that lives in peace. We've got to have a world free from oppression. And that's why I'm really proud to be here when we've got the Palestinian ambassador with us here today. We were having a chat last night, and when I think back, I remember being at a protest outside the Israeli embassy in London as they read out the names of children who had been killed in the latest mowing of the lawn, as they call it in the Israeli press, when they go in to massacre civilians in Gaza and in the West Bank. I was holding my son in my arms when they were calling out those names. My son is 18 years old now, and we're still campaigning. And they've been campaigning for many more years than that in Palestine for their freedom. Well, my trade union stands in absolute solidarity with the Palestinian people. We must have an end to this genocide. We must have an ultimate arms embargo to anything going to Israel. We must have sanctions on these Israeli politicians, and we must have an inquiry into the complicity of our government in carrying out the biggest genocide in modern history. They must be held to account. They will not be forgiven by the history books. And the most recent outbreak of militarism across Europe, we must have 5% of public spending going on arms and armaments. How can that be when we've got half of our welfare budget trying to keep workers who are already getting a wage just enough money so they can survive? We need the peace movement on its feet, and what we've seen over the past few years is nothing less than worrying, because I've got to tell you this. When we went out on strike, and many of us here did in our trade unions, over the past few years, they went for the legislation books to take away our right to strike in the RMT union and in ASLEF in the transport unions. We won on the picket lines. We won in the court of public opinion. So they ran back to Parliament and tried to criminalise dissent against poverty in Britain. That's what they did. And by the same token, they are seeking to criminalise dissent against genocide and war around the world. And we have got to stand up for our civil liberties. Whilst we must have the right to bargain and fight and protest and campaign, we have got a right to do that, whether it's for justice in the workplace or peace in the world. It's the same struggle, so we've got to be united. Finally, I'll say this to you, it's a real honour for me to be here, honestly. As someone who's come here as a local rep and stood by your standing listening to the speeches, it's an absolute honour. And I just want to mention some of our members who are in strike action, employed by a company called Churchill's, one of the most horrible outsourcing outfits you'll ever see on the face of the earth. They're in strike action in the Tyne and Wear Metro for basic justice at work. And here's an outsourcing company that enriches themselves off of the labour of our members. And what we're saying to the Labour government and to the local mayor administration is get rid of them, bring those workers back in house. We want insourcing for our members. We've been promised the biggest wave of insourcing in a generation. But I tell you what, if we don't get it soon, we'll be striking from the Tyne and Wear Metro down to the Dover coast until we get it. So solidarity, everyone. Let's keep fighting and let's fight for the organised society. Solidarity.